All right, what we've talked about is absolute value. And once again, real quickly, we'll talk about what absolute value is. The definition of absolute value is the distance from 0 on a number line to a certain point on that number line. So for example, it's basically your starting point is 0 in a number line in your head, on the paper, whatever you need, and how far you're jumping to each one of those little dashes on the number line to get to a certain point that you need to get to. Okay? Doesn't matter if you're going left, which is negative on a number line, or right, which are positive numbers on the number line. Doesn't matter. They don't want to know which way you're going. They don't care. They just want to know the distance that you're taking from 0 to get to that point. That's it. That's why you will never, ever, ever see a negative as an answer to an absolute value problem. So let's do one example real quick, just as a review, and then move on. The absolute value of negative 30. Well, how many jumps do we take from 0 on the imaginary number line in our head to get to negative 30? Well, we know it's negative, so we're going left, but that doesn't matter because the answer is never going to be negative. So we know that that's 30 jumps. So that is our answer, 30. Absolute value of negative 30 is 30. Very, very simple. So looking at the board here, we're going to compare absolute value, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we use absolute value in the real world. Now, this is the question that I have. Can I interpret comparisons involving absolute value? And basically all that means is that how can I compare absolute value together? And that's why we have to talk about real world application. Now, hopefully by the end of this video we can change this from a question to a statement, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So let's talk about comparing absolute value. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, how can I compare absolute value problems when the answers are always positive? Well, that's what we're going to talk about, and it has to do with our real-world application. Now, a real good example has to do with diving. Now, if you're a swimmer and you've been at a swimming pool, maybe you dive and there are toys out there or things that you can drop at the bottom of the pool and you can race down and dive. People do that. Also, people do that in the ocean as well. And it's something that we can use for absolute value. Now, so let's talk about that. Sea level, that is the absolute surface of the water. It's where the air meets the water, and what's below that point is all water. So above the surface, air and people and stuff. Below, water and sea creatures and stuff. Okay? So that surface is kind of like a number line. It's our 0 point. Okay? Anything above that is positive. Anything below the water is negative. Okay? Good comparison, right? Okay, so how do we use absolute value into that? Well, here's the thing. Now, when we talk about positive and negative numbers, we always talked about, especially on a number line, that if you're below 0, it's a negative whatever number. So it would be negative 15. But when we're talking about diving, we never hear any divers say that they dove negative 15 feet below the surface. Why? Because it sounds right. Okay, of everything that we've talked about with number lines and things like that, and we're comparing a vertical number line with sea level, that would make sense, right? Well, think about it this way. And I'm going to pull a little grammar out here on you, and we're going to talk about something called a double negative. And this is something that I've heard 6th graders say to me a lot, and I even hear adults do this sometimes. Here's a statement that has a double negative, and this is what I'll use to explain it. If I hear somebody say, I didn't do nothing. Okay? You didn't do nothing. Didn't means you didn't do anything. Nothing means nothing. So if you didn't do nothing, that means that you didn't do nothing, so you did something? Take a minute to ponder that statement. I didn't do nothing. That means you did something. Because that didn't kind of cancels out that nothing. See what I'm saying? Okay. It's kind of the same way with the statement of, I dove negative 15 feet below the water. That means that you went negative below the water? Well, that doesn't make sense. That means you're flying in the air 15 feet above the water. Well, last I checked, without some help, humans can't fly. Not by themselves. And no, Falling with style is not flying. Sorry. Yeah. Common 6th grade answer. Okay? So, unless you know how to fly without help, then you can't say that. If you do know how to do that, clue me in on that little trick. I'd like to know that. Okay? So, they don't say that. Usually what they say is, using absolute value, smarty, is that they dove 15 feet below the surface. Now that's saying the same thing as on a number line that they went negative 15 below 0. They just say it in a different way, but they use absolute value. Pretty smart, huh? Yeah, pretty cool. All right, now another way that they use it as well has to do with banking. And it has to do with bank accounts. And this is very, very important in the real world, in your life in the future. When you get older, you get a job, you've got bills, you've got your own house, and everything else. This is going to be very important. You have to be able to know this. Excuse me. Basically, what's going to happen is that you're going to have a bank account. And you're going to have, hopefully, money in that bank account to pay for things. And you've got to be careful of knowing what's in that bank account at all times, so that when you buy something, you make sure that you actually have the money to pay for it. That would be helpful. So what you have to do is, say if you have $25 in the bank. Now you know that if you spend $25, you have nothing, and it's kind of like a number line. This would be $25 above 0. Okay, that means you're good. You got $25. Sweet! Okay? 0 point means you have no money. Below 0 means that you spent way too much. And now the bank is looking for you because now you owe them money. Ruh-roh. Now you're in trouble. Okay? So, that's a way that we use absolute value. Now, on your bank statement, it may say your balance, which is how much money you have in the account, may be -5. So let's say I spent $30 of this money. That means that I spent $25 plus I owe the bank $5 more. But think about what I just said there. I did not say that I owe the bank -5. I said that I owed them $5. Nobody says that I owe them -5. Okay? I say I owe them $5, which is an absolute value term. People still know what I mean. If I owe somebody $5, that means that I got to give them some money. Okay? Absolute value term. I don't say I owe them -5 because people are like, no, we don't talk like that, because it's an absolute value term. Same thing. Okay? So let's talk about that. I'll give you an example. Let's go back to the diving. Let's say that I'm a diver and I'm really good at it. And I go diving 3 times. First time, I dive 30 feet. Next time, 40. Next time, 50. So, like I said, I don't say I dove -40 feet. That means I'd be flying in the air 40 feet, and that'd be awesome, but I didn't do it. So I use the absolute value each time of each one of these. So 30 feet below, 40 feet below, and 50 feet. That's not a 56, below. Okay? Make sense? Awesome. So let's change the statement from, can I interpret comparisons involving absolute values? Yeah, hopefully you can. So let's make it a statement and say, can I? Yeah, I can. Awesome. Hopefully that helps.